Have you ever woken up tired before the day even begins? Not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the kind that sits quietly behind your eyes, heavy with invisible weight. You go through the motions, pour yourself into conversations, answer messages, meet expectations, and yet something inside you feels hollow, as if you've spent all your energy without ever being refilled. It's not that life is too demanding. It's that you've been giving too much of yourself to what doesn't give back. Maybe you've noticed it too, the way we hand out our peace in tiny, invisible ways. We explain ourselves to people who never truly listen. We chase approval from those who barely notice our presence. We bend our truth to avoid disappointing others until our soul grows quiet from neglect. And by the time we realize it, we're not just tired, we're empty. But here's a truth rarely spoken. You are not exhausted from life itself. You are exhausted from abandoning yourself, from carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations while ignoring your own inner voice. Buddhism teaches that suffering doesn't come from the world. It comes from our attachment to things that deplete the soul. The moment you cling to what drains you, you begin to lose touch with what sustains you. So, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what if peace doesn't begin when you do more, but when you finally stop giving your worth away? What if the calm you've been searching for isn't something to achieve, but something to protect? This video is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to the person you've always been, before the world convinced you to shrink. Today, we'll walk through 10 quiet realizations that will help you release what's heavy, remember your value, and come home to yourself once again. Take a slow breath. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Stop searching for validation. Start returning home. Somewhere along the way, we all begin to wander, chasing approval, applause, or the small nods of recognition that make us feel seen. Like a traveler with a compass in hand, we keep walking in circles, unaware that the needle has always been pointing inward. We look for home in other people's eyes, but the map to peace has never left our own heart. You see, the more we seek validation outside, the further we drift from the truth within. Every time we bend ourselves to be accepted, a quiet part of us whispers, "This isn't me." Yet we keep going, posting, pleasing, explaining, hoping that somewhere in the noise, someone will finally say, "You're enough." But love and approval that come from outside are like water cupped in your hands. No matter how tightly you hold, they eventually slip away. The peace you are chasing in others is temporary, but the peace that comes from returning to yourself is eternal. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that the root of suffering is attachment, and one of the deepest attachments is the need to be seen by others. When you crave validation, you hand your power to those who may never understand you. But when you turn inward, when you anchor your worth in awareness, you become unshakable. So today, I invite you to pause. Sit in silence for 1 minute. Breathe deeply and whisper to yourself, "I already am what I keep seeking." Let that sentence echo softly within you. With each repetition, you'll feel a quiet shift, the kind that doesn't shout but steadies, the kind that reminds you that peace doesn't come from being noticed, but from being aligned. You are not lost. You've simply been walking away from your own light, mistaking distance for direction. But the moment you stop searching outward and begin to listen inward, the path home appears on its own. Not because you found it, but because you finally stopped running from it. Lesson 2. Your worth is not earned. It is remembered. You've never needed to earn your worth. You've only needed to remember it. Think of the moon on a cloudy night. Its light doesn't disappear when the clouds pass over it. It doesn't panic or try to prove that it's still shining. It simply waits, knowing that the clouds were never stronger than its glow. In the same way, your light, your value, your sacred enoughness has always been there, quietly shining behind the clouds of doubt and comparison. But somewhere along the way, Someone taught you that you needed to prove yourself to be loved. Maybe it was a parent's silence, a teacher's harsh word, a society that measures worth in numbers and noise. And so you began to strive, to perform, to collect approval like fragments of light, forgetting that the source was already within you. Buddhism teaches that enlightenment is not about gaining something new. It's about removing what hides the truth. It's not addition, but subtraction, the peeling away of illusion. Every false belief, I'm not good enough, I need to achieve more, I have to earn love, is just another cloud covering the moon. The practice is not to create worth, but to remember it. Ask yourself gently, when did I first begin to believe I was not enough? And who taught me that? Sit with this question as if it were a candle in a dark room. Let its flame reveal what's been buried, not to blame, but to understand. Because once you see the source of your forgetting, remembering becomes easy. You are not broken. You are not waiting to be completed. You are not a project that needs fixing. You are a being of light, temporarily covered by the dust of comparison. And the moment you stop trying to become something more, you begin to see what you've always been, whole, radiant, and beautifully complete. So tonight, as you look at the moon, let it remind you, you were never meant to create your own light. You were only meant to remove what keeps you from seeing it. Lesson 3. Let silence defend you. There comes a time in life when you realize that not everyone deserves an explanation, because your truth was never meant to be debated, only lived. Once, there was a monk who carried a bowl of water through the monastery garden each morning. The surface of the water was so still that it mirrored the sky perfectly. Clouds, trees, and the soft outline of his own face. One day, another monk questioned him harshly, doubting his path, his choices, his sincerity. The young monk, eager to defend himself, began to explain. But as his words grew faster, his hands shook and ripples began to spread across the water. His reflection disappeared. An elder passing by said gently, "Every time you rush to prove yourself, you disturb your own peace. Let the water still, and the truth will show itself again." And so the monk stood in silence, breathing, waiting. Slowly, the ripples faded. The reflection returned. In that quiet moment, he realized something profound. His peace was never lost. It was only disturbed by the noise of justification. Each time you explain yourself to those unwilling to understand, you give away a piece of your energy. Every defense, every over-explanation is an invisible leak that drains your calm. The truth doesn't need protection, it only needs presence. The Buddha taught that words can build bridges, but they can also build walls. When spoken from ego, they bind us to misunderstanding. But when born from silence, they become light, gentle, clear, and necessary. So practice this today. Say less. Let your peace explain what your words cannot. Notice how quiet dignity feels in your body, how powerful stillness can be when it replaces the need to convince. Remember, still water reflects the sky perfectly. Disturbed water reflects nothing at all. When you grow still, your truth speaks without sound. And in that silence, your worth shines brighter than any defense ever could. Lesson 4. Compassion without boundaries is self-destruction. There was once a monk who built a small shelter at the edge of a mountain path. Travelers often passed by, tired, hungry, and lost, and he welcomed them all. At first, a few came, resting gratefully under his roof. But as word spread, more arrived. Some were kind, some careless. Some entered with reverence, others with noise. The monk's days turned into endless service, cooking, cleaning, comforting, until his own meditation fell silent and his peace disappeared beneath the weight of constant giving. One evening, an elder monk visited and found the young monk exhausted, his eyes dim with fatigue. "Why do you look so weary, child?" he asked. The monk sighed. Because I try to be kind to everyone. The elder smiled softly. Then you have mistaken kindness for sacrifice. Even compassion needs structure. A temple without walls is not a refuge. It is chaos. That night, the young monk rebuilt his shelter with care. He didn't close his doors, but he set a limit, a rhythm between giving and resting. The next morning, he woke to stillness for the first time in months. The few travelers who entered now came with respect, sensing the quiet order of his space. His compassion hadn't lessened. It had matured. So many of us carry that same misunderstanding. We think love means saying yes to everything, to every request, every demand, every emotional weight handed to us. We confuse peace with pleasing. But the truth is, kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Boundaries are not walls. They are the architecture of peace. They define where compassion can flourish without being consumed. Ask yourself gently, what if saying no was an act of love, not rejection? Love for your energy, love for your clarity, love for the parts of you that need rest to keep giving sincerely. In Buddhist practice, discernment is not coldness, it's wisdom. It teaches you to give without draining, to serve without losing balance. A candle can light 1,000 others, but only if it protects its own flame. So the next time your heart says yes out of fear, pause, breathe, listen. And remember, every time you honor your boundaries, you're not withholding love, you're preserving the purity that makes love possible at all. Lesson 6. Sacred circles. Who has access to your peace? There was once a monk who lived at the edge of a vast desert. One morning, as travelers passed by, he bent down and drew a perfect circle in the sand. Some watched curiously as he stood inside it, still and silent. When a few approached and asked what he was doing, he replied softly, "This circle is my peace. Those who walk with respect may enter. Those who bring noise must stay outside." The travelers looked puzzled. "Isn't that selfish?" one asked. The monk smiled gently and said, "No. It's sacred. Even the temple has gates, not to keep people out, but to protect what's holy within." In that simple moment, the desert wind carried a truth that so many of us forget. Your peace is not public property. It is a sacred circle, earned through years of falling, healing, and rebuilding yourself. You are not arrogant for setting boundaries. You are wise for protecting what took years to restore. In this noisy world, people will constantly reach for your attention, your time, your heart. Some will come to sit with gratitude. Others will enter carelessly, bringing chaos and confusion. If you never draw your circle, you'll soon find yourself living inside everyone else's. Buddhism teaches that discernment is compassion in practice. You can love others deeply while still saying, "Not here. Not this way." Boundaries are not rejection. They are the shape of self-respect. They allow love to flow freely without draining your strength. Ask yourself gently, do I fear losing people? Or do I fear being alone with my truth? Because often, it's not others we're afraid to let go of. It's the silence that follows. But silence is not emptiness. It's space, and only in that space can peace grow roots. Imagine your life as that circle in the sand. Inside it is calm, clarity, and self-awareness. Outside it, the noise of the world continues, but it no longer defines you. You don't need to close your heart to protect your peace. You simply need to know who's earned the right to sit beside your fire. So draw your circle with grace. Invite with love. Guard with wisdom. Because when your peace becomes sacred, your presence becomes powerful. Lesson 7. Boundaries. The tree that learned to stand tall. In a quiet valley surrounded by mountains, a monk once planted a small sapling near his hut. Each morning, he would water it and whisper blessings under his breath. When strong winds came rushing down the hills, he worried the young tree might break, so he bent its stem carefully to protect it from the gusts. Day after day, year after year, he did this, shielding it from every force that might cause harm. Years passed, and the sapling grew taller. But when the monk looked closer, he saw that the trunk was curved, weak, and trembling even under a gentle breeze. Saddened, he went to his teacher and asked, "Master, I have cared for this tree every day, yet it stands so fragile. What did I do wrong?" The elder smiled and said, "You loved it so much that you never allowed it to learn its own rhythm. A tree grows strong not by avoiding the wind, but by learning to stand firm against it. By bending too often, it forgot the shape of its own strength." That night, as the monk sat beneath the bent tree, he understood. What breaks us is rarely the storm itself, but our constant attempt to please every gust that passes through. We are much like that sapling. We bend our truth to avoid conflict. We lower our voice to be accepted, and we hide our boundaries to be loved. But in doing so, we lose the natural alignment of our soul. We think kindness means saying yes, but real kindness begins with the courage to say no when peace requires it. Buddhism teaches the middle way, the balance between isolation and self-abandonment. It reminds us that peace is not found in pleasing everyone or in rejecting the world completely. It's found in standing tall, firm yet flexible, kind yet clear. Just as the bamboo bends but never breaks, strength is born not in constant compliance, but in inner stillness. When you live without boundaries, you invite chaos into your inner garden. People will take from your stillness without realizing it cost you something. And when your roots grow tired, resentment begins to bloom where compassion once lived. Boundaries are how you water your soul again. Not walls to block love, but fences to protect the soil of your peace. Think about the moments you've said yes when your heart whispered no. How often have you stayed in conversations that drained you, commitments that suffocated you, or relationships that made you forget your own voice? Each unnecessary yes is a quiet betrayal of the self. But the beauty of awareness is that change begins in a single moment of clarity. Today, let one no become your act of peace. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't need an explanation. A gentle no can carry more love than a forced yes. Because when you say no from truth, you are saying yes to your balance, your calm, your life. The Buddha taught that wisdom and compassion must walk together. Boundaries are where they meet, compassion for others and wisdom for yourself. Without boundaries, compassion burns out. Without compassion, boundaries become cold. The balance of both creates harmony, a life rooted in self-respect and guided by peace. So stand tall, like the tree that finally learned its own rhythm. Let the winds come and go. Let opinions swirl around you. You do not have to bend for every storm. The roots of peace grow deep only when you stop trading your strength for approval. And one day, when others come to sit in your shade, they will feel the calm of someone who has mastered the art of standing tall, not by resisting life, but by standing firm in truth. Lesson 8. Detachment, love without chains. There was once a monk who found a small injured bird trembling beneath a tree after a storm. Its feathers were damp, its wings weak, and its heartbeat faint. The monk scooped it gently into his hands, wrapped it in soft cloth, and carried it back to his hut. Day after day, he cared for it, feeding it, sheltering it from rain, speaking softly as though his voice could heal. Slowly, the bird regained its strength. Each morning, it began to sing, a pure, delicate song that filled the quiet monastery with life. The monk grew to love that song. It became part of his mornings, part of his peace. Yet with each passing day, a quiet fear began to grow inside him. What would happen when the bird was strong enough to fly? What if it never came back? What if the silence returned? So even when the bird's wings were healed, the monk kept its cage closed, convincing himself it was for its own safety. One evening, his teacher came to visit. He looked at the cage, then at the monk, and said gently, "You call this care, but it is only fear wearing the mask of love. A bird that cannot fly will forget its song, and love that cannot let go will soon turn into sorrow." The words sank deep. The monk realized that what he called protection was in truth attachment, the need to control what was never his to keep. With trembling hands, he opened the cage door. The bird hesitated for a moment, then spread its wings and soared into the fading light. The monk stood there, watching until it became a distant speck in the sky. The air was quiet again, yet within that silence, he felt something unexpected. Not loss, but peace. That night, as he sat in meditation, the monk whispered, "I did not lose the bird. I released it. And in doing so, I set myself free." We all hold on to things long after they've served their purpose. Relationships that no longer nourish us, memories that keep us stuck in old pain, expectations that chain us to disappointment. We hold on because letting go feels like losing, because we fear the emptiness that might follow. But the truth is, attachment is not love. It's fear. Fear of change, fear of solitude, fear that without what we cling to, we might be nothing. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, not because connection is wrong, but because clinging distorts connection. True love doesn't demand ownership, it invites freedom. It's like holding a bird in open hands. It stays by choice, not by force. When you grip too tightly, you crush what you meant to protect. But when you hold gently, love breathes, grows, and continues naturally. Detachment, then, is not coldness. It is clarity. It is the maturity of love that says, "I can care for you deeply and still let you be free." It's the understanding that you don't need to cage what you love in order to keep it close. You only need to appreciate its presence and allow its departure when the time comes. The mind often confuses detachment with indifference, but they are opposites. Indifference comes from a closed heart. Detachment comes from an open one. It's the realization that everything, every person, every season, every experience has its natural rhythm. Nothing belongs to us. It only passes through our life for as long as it needs to. When we fight this flow, we suffer. When we accept it, peace begins to take root. Ask yourself softly, what am I gripping today that life is gently asking me to release? Perhaps it's someone you love who no longer walks the same path. Perhaps it's a dream that didn't unfold the way you imagined. Or maybe it's an old version of yourself, one that served you once but now keeps you from growing. Whatever it is, hold it in your mind as the monk held the bird, not with resistance, but with tenderness. Whisper to it, "I release you with love." Feel that sentence ripple through your being. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. When you release what's heavy, your hands open for what's real. The heart doesn't become empty, it becomes spacious. And in that space, new peace begins to bloom. Buddhist wisdom calls this the art of impermanence. To see that everything changes is not to despair, but to awaken. Because if all things pass, then pain will pass too. The storm will pass. The loneliness will pass. And in that passing, you discover that peace was never something you had to hold. It was something you had to allow. Letting go is not a single act. It's a daily practice. Every morning, release one thought that weighs you down. Every night, forgive one attachment that no longer serves you. Gradually, you'll realize that you've been carrying far more than you need. The moment you loosen your grip, your spirit begins to breathe again. Remember, the bird that flies away is not a loss. It's a reminder. A reminder that love is not measured by how long something stays, but by how freely it's allowed to go. When you love without chains, you invite everything beautiful to stay longer. Because freedom, not fear, is what makes love last. So open your palms. Let the bird fly. Let life move. Let the silence return. And as it does, listen closely. You might just hear your own heart singing again, free and unburdened, beneath the sky of stillness. Lesson 9. Healing begins when you stop calling yourself broken. There was once a monk who carried 2 clay pots across the same path each morning. He used them to fetch water from the river for the temple gardens. One pot was perfect, smooth, unblemished, and proud of its completeness. The other had a small crack along its side, invisible at first glance, but enough to cause a slow, steady leak. Each day, as the monk returned, the perfect pot delivered every drop it carried, while the cracked pot arrived half empty. Over time, the cracked pot grew ashamed of itself. One morning, as the monk reached the river, the pot whispered, "Master, I'm sorry. You work so hard, but because of my flaw, you never receive the full measure of what you seek. I have failed you." The monk smiled gently and said, "Have you ever looked at the path we walk?" The pot was silent. The monk continued, "Do you notice the line of flowers blooming on your side, while the other side is bare? I planted seeds there long ago, knowing your cracks would water them every morning. Without your flaw, this path would be barren." And in that moment, the pot understood. What it called imperfection had been quietly nurturing beauty all along. We are all that cracked pot. We spend so much of our lives apologizing for our scars, hiding our hurts, and trying to appear whole that we forget. Every wound has been watering something unseen within us. Pain is not a punishment. It's a path. It doesn't break us. It shapes us. It teaches us compassion, patience, and depth. The world often teaches you to fix yourself, to erase every crack, to chase perfection, as if healing means becoming flawless. But Buddhist wisdom tells a different story. Nothing is truly broken. Everything is simply in a state of becoming. Even the lotus must rise through the mud to reach the sun. The mud is not its enemy, it's its origin. So when you call yourself broken, you deny the sacred work your pain is doing beneath the surface. What if the ache you carry is not a flaw to hide, but a teacher trying to guide you? What if your heartbreak, your loss, your failure were never mistakes, but directions? Pain is not a defect, it's direction. It points toward the parts of you that need your love most. When something hurts deeply, it's not because you are weak, it's because life is showing you where you've been disconnected from your own wholeness. Imagine standing before a cracked mirror. Most people would see the flaw. But what if you saw through it? The way light refracts across the broken lines, creating patterns of beauty that would never exist in a perfect reflection. Your wounds are like that. They don't ruin your light. They reveal how it travels through you. The Buddha taught that suffering is not the end. It's the beginning of wisdom. When you stop fighting pain, you begin to listen to it. You begin to hear what it's trying to say. Every tear, every scar, every quiet ache is a message. You are still alive. You are still growing. You are still becoming. Healing, then, is not fixing yourself. It's remembering yourself. It's the art of returning to what you've always been beneath the noise of shame. It's the realization that nothing about you was ever wrong, only misunderstood. When you stop labeling your pain as failure, you create space for transformation. You start to see that your hardest moments were not curses, but crossings. They brought you closer to empathy, to strength, to truth. You begin to trust that even your darkest nights were preparing you for dawn. So practice this today. Whenever your mind whispers, "I'm broken," replace it softly with, "I am not broken, I am becoming." Say it again and again until it begins to settle like warm sunlight inside your chest. Let it heal the places where your worth was once questioned. Let it remind you that becoming whole doesn't mean erasing your cracks. It means letting light pass through them. Healing is not linear. Some days you'll feel full of peace, and others you'll still ache. But remember, Even the moon doesn't shine fully every night. Its changing shape doesn't make it less whole. You, too, are complete at every stage of your unfolding. So be gentle with yourself. The same patience you offer others, offer to your own heart. Sit with your pain, not to analyze it, but to honor it. Ask it, what are you trying to teach me? Then listen, not with the mind that wants to fix, but with the heart that wants to understand. Because in truth, healing doesn't begin when the pain ends. It begins when you stop calling yourself broken, when you start to see your cracks as evidence of courage, your scars as proof of survival, and your story as a map of growth. You were never damaged, only changing. You were never incomplete, only unfolding. Every fracture, every sorrow, every loss has been shaping you into someone softer, wiser, and more awake. The flowers along your path are proof of that. So the next time you see your reflection and notice the cracks, smile. They are not signs of failure. They are windows through which your light escapes into the world. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real, to feel, to grow, to become. And in that becoming, you discover the quiet truth at the heart of healing, that nothing about you ever needed to be fixed, only remembered. Lesson 10. Emotional balance. The ocean beneath the storm. Stand for a moment beside the sea. Watch how the waves crash and tumble, rising and falling with endless rhythm. The surface is wild, restless, unpredictable, never still. But if you could dive beneath it, you'd find something astonishing. Only a few meters down, the chaos disappears. The water grows quiet, vast, and undisturbed. Even when storms rage above, the deep ocean remains calm. It doesn't resist the storm, nor does it chase after peace. It simply exists in its natural state of stillness. Our emotions are much like that sea. On the surface, they move quickly. Anger, joy, sadness, fear, desire, all crashing into one another, stirring the waters of the mind. Most of us live there, on the surface, reacting to every wave that rises. Someone's words create ripples, a disappointment creates tides, and we're swept away before we even realize what's happening. But beneath every storm, there is a depth within you that remains untouched. Your inner ocean, vast and still. The Buddha once taught that peace is not the absence of turmoil, but the presence of awareness. The purpose of mindfulness is not to control the waves, but to remember that you are not the waves. You are the ocean beneath them. You cannot control the wind, but you can learn to sail with grace. When something provokes you, when anger flares, when anxiety tightens the chest, when sadness begins to pull you under, remember this. The emotion is the weather, not the sky. It will pass. No storm lasts forever. The more you resist it, the longer it lingers. But when you learn to observe it, to watch it move through you without judgment, it begins to lose its power. Imagine yourself sitting beside your own mind as a silent witness. When a wave of anger rises, you don't fight it. You breathe through it. When fear whispers, you don't push it away. You acknowledge it softly, as you would comfort a frightened child. You say, "I see you." And with that simple awareness, something shifts. The emotion no longer controls you. It becomes something you can understand, even befriend. Buddhism teaches that mindfulness is not control. It is awareness without resistance. Most people try to fix emotions, to make them disappear. But emotions are not mistakes. They are messages. Anger shows where your boundaries have been crossed. Sadness reveals what you value. Fear points toward what you have yet to understand. Every feeling, when met with awareness, becomes a teacher instead of a tormentor. When you live reactively, your life becomes a storm. But when you live mindfully, even the storm becomes sacred. Because every gust of emotion, every wave of experience, begins to guide you back to balance. True strength is not about silencing emotion. It's about creating enough inner stillness to let it pass without drowning in it. Think of a sailor who learns not to curse the wind, but to adjust the sail. The sea will never be predictable, and neither will life. People will misunderstand you. Plans will collapse. Things will change. You can't stop the waves, but you can stop letting them define you. Balance doesn't come from controlling your surroundings. It comes from mastering your inner response. Here's a small practice to begin today. The next time you feel an emotional storm rising, maybe irritation, fear, or frustration, don't react immediately. Don't explain, defend, or suppress. Instead, pause. Take a deep breath and simply observe what's happening inside. Feel the physical sensation, the tightening, the heartbeat, the heat, without labeling it as good or bad. Just watch it. Breathe until the storm passes. You'll notice something remarkable. What you observe, you begin to understand. And what you understand, you no longer fear. Each time you do this, you build a bridge between your surface and your depth. You begin to live more from the ocean than from the wave. You start to realize that peace isn't something you chase. It's something you uncover beneath the noise. Life will never stop testing your calm. There will always be someone who triggers you, a situation that unsettles you, a memory that stirs pain. But every time you return to the breath, every time you choose awareness over reaction, you strengthen the anchor of your soul. You start to trust the quiet beneath the chaos. Remember this: storms are temporary, but the ocean is eternal. The emotions that visit you are not enemies. They are movements of nature, passing weather within the sky of your consciousness. The real suffering comes not from the storm itself, but from believing you are the storm. So the next time life feels overwhelming, close your eyes and imagine yourself sinking gently beneath the waves. Feel the noise fade as you descend into stillness. Down there, the world grows quiet. The water is cool and steady. You are not broken, not lost, just returning to the depth that has always been yours. This is emotional balance, the art of staying rooted while everything else moves, the courage to let the winds blow without losing your direction, the grace to let the waves rise and fall without letting them take your peace. And as you live this truth, day by day, you'll find that no matter how loud the surface becomes, your depth will always whisper back, calm, steady, and free. Because peace, like the ocean, was never gone. You just needed to remember where to look. As this journey draws to a close, take a slow, mindful breath. In through the nose, out through the heart. You've walked through many truths in this series, each one a quiet lantern, lighting the path back to yourself. You've learned to protect your energy from what drains it, to honor your worth without needing validation, and to love without losing yourself. You've learned that peace isn't found by adding more to your life, but by releasing what was never yours to carry. At the beginning, we spoke of exhaustion, that heavy feeling of giving too much of yourself to what doesn't give back. But now, here you are, softer, clearer, stronger. You've discovered that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. That detachment isn't coldness, it's wisdom. That self-worth isn't earned, it's remembered. Through each lesson, you've peeled away another layer of illusion, the belief that you had to prove, to chase, to be perfect. Instead, you've returned to something far simpler, something quieter, the knowing that you were enough all along. The calm you were searching for outside was never lost. It was waiting patiently within you. As you move forward, remember what this path has shown you. When life begins to pull you in every direction, pause and return inward. When noise surrounds you, breathe and remember the still ocean beneath the storm. When your mind says you must do more to be worthy, smile gently and remind it, I already am what I keep seeking. Each breath you take from this moment on can be a prayer of remembrance. You don't need to strive for peace. You only need to stop abandoning it. You don't need to seek love. You only need to let it flow from the quiet space within you. You don't need to escape life. You only need to meet it with gentleness. Buddhist wisdom teaches that awakening is not a sudden arrival. It's a series of quiet returns. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose silence over explanation, every time you honor your truth instead of pleasing others. That is awakening. It's not something you chase, it's something you allow. And so, before this reflection ends, let these words settle softly into your heart, not as ideas to remember, but as truths to live by. May you remember your worth in silence, guard your peace with compassion, and walk through life knowing you were never incomplete, only unfolding. If this reflection brought calm to your heart, share it with someone who's still learning to value themselves, because healing spreads quietly, from one peaceful soul to another. Now take one final breath. Feel the air move in and out, gentle, effortless, alive. You don't need to chase balance, love, or meaning anymore. You've already come home to the one place peace never left, yourself. Welcome back.